Welcome to the July edition of the GNSS interference update for aviation. In this video, we're going to review the latest developments of the past month in terms of GNSS jamming and spoofing globally, and we'll take a closer look at three main regions: the Baltic Sea area, the Eastern Mediterranean area, and the Persian Gulf, where interesting developments happened in the past month. If you're especially interested in one of those three regions, you can use the chapters in the timeline below to jump directly to that part of the video.
Let's start with jamming. What you're seeing here is the global jamming situation animated day by day throughout the month of July 2025. Compared to the previous month, there hasn't been a significant change in where the major hotspots are located. In Europe, we continue to see persistent jamming across the Baltic states, Poland, Finland, and large portions of the Baltic Sea, particularly, of course, centered around the Kaliningrad region. In the Black Sea area, interference remains active across coastal zones and international waters, as well as in Armenia, Georgia, and Azerbaijan, extending all the way into the Caspian Sea. This is a particularly important region as it covers most of the traffic between Europe and Asia these days. In the Eastern Mediterranean, jamming continues from southern Turkey all the way down to the Sinai Peninsula in Egypt, including, of course, the airspace of Israel. In the Persian Gulf, the relatively new hotspot, where significant spoofing also started earlier this year, remains active, affecting airspace across multiple Gulf states. And we're going to come back to that region later on in the spoofing part to take a closer look at the interesting patterns that we can observe there. Then along the India-Pakistan border, in Southeast Asia, we again observe interference in Myanmar with spillovers into Thailand and Bangladesh. And finally, within Russia, large areas remain impacted, with interference extending into northern Finland and northern Norway as well. Now let's look at spoofing, and let's start with a global overview. And just a reminder, instead of just blocking GNSS signals like jamming does, spoofing involves generating fake satellite signals, causing receivers to calculate incorrect positions and maybe also times. This makes it a different type of threat, often with a more profound impact on aviation operations than just jamming. If you want to understand in detail how spoofing works and why it matters, I recommend watching our dedicated explainer video that is linked up here. In July, spoofing mostly overlapped with the jamming regions we just saw, with the notable exceptions of most of the areas in Turkey, as well as far northern Finland and Norway, where no spoofing activity was observed. Now let's look at some of those regions in more detail, starting with the Baltic Sea area. On this map, the blue aircraft icons represent the last credible position of each aircraft before its broadcast position via the ADS-B jumped to a spoofed location. The circles show those spoofed locations, and the numbers in the circle indicate how many aircraft were spoofed to that particular location. We can clearly see that northeastern Poland is heavily impacted, particularly for traffic heading from Poland into the Baltic states and Lithuania. There's also variability over the water. On July the 8th, for example, nearly all spoofed aircraft were concentrated over northeastern Poland and Lithuania, while on July the 16th, we saw spoofing extending all the way to the Swedish coast near Öland, affecting even flights approaching Stockholm, which is a destination where crews arriving from Western Europe might typically not expect to be impacted by spoofing. Next, let's look to the Eastern Mediterranean. While spoofing is still frequently seen in this area, the number of affected aircraft and the size of the affected area have significantly decreased compared to previous months and years. The patterns here also vary. For example, on July the 3rd, we saw no spoofing at all, while on July the 20th, spoofing covered a pretty large area from northern Cyprus all the way down to the Sinai Peninsula in Egypt. At other times, such as, for example, here on July the 27th, it mostly impacted flights to and from Israel, but no flights in around Cyprus or Egypt. And unlike in the Baltics, where we saw aircraft being spoofed to a variety of different locations, here in that region, all the aircraft are spoofed to the same location, which is here on the southern runway of the airport in Amman in Jordan. And finally, now let's move on to the Persian Gulf region, the newest spoofing hotspots, where we do see a variety of quite interesting spoofing patterns. On July 3rd and 4th, we saw arrivals into Dubai coming in over Iran, as well as arrivals and departures in and out of Dubai over the Persian Gulf, between Dubai and Qatar being affected. These aircraft were all spoofed to two different locations, both in Iran, one near the city of Bandar Abbas and the other one near the city of Bitkun. On July 10th and 11th, the pattern narrowed, with only flights rather close to Dubai being affected and the spoofed area extending less far out into the Persian Gulf towards Qatar compared to what we saw on the 3rd and 4th. These aircraft were spoofed only to the location near Bandar Abbas, again affecting arrivals from Iran and over the Persian Gulf. And then finally, on July the 17th and 18th, spoofing shifted significantly up north, impacting flights in the northern part of the Persian Gulf between Qatar and Kuwait. These aircraft were spoofed to yet another location in Iran, which was slightly north to that other location near Bitkun. These localized capture areas, often over water, may indicate the presence of seaborne spoofing sources in that area. And notably, unlike in the Baltic or Eastern Mediterranean, where aircraft were spoofed either to varying different locations or a single fixed point, aircraft here often are spoofed into a circular pattern, creating a distinctly different spoofing pattern yet again.
That's it for the July update. Thanks a lot for watching and see you in the next video.